Hello, hello, and welcome once again to another edition of Quoth Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven, and joining me on Friday movie night talk is Color Phil Kid, Christopher M. Hall.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Our topic this week is KRAVEN the Hunter. And, well, this was kind of a weird film, wasn't it?
It was unexpected. I will say that.
Yes. KRAVEN the Hunter, 2024. Directed by J.C. Shandor. Screenplay by Art Markham, Matt Holloway, and Richard Wank. Starred by Richard Wank. Produced by Avi Arad, Matt Tomac, and David Hausholter. Starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ariana DeBose, Fred Eckinger, Alessandro Nivola, Christopher Abbott, and Russell Crowe. Edited by Chris Lebenzen and Craig Wood. Music by Benjamin Wallfish and Evgueni and Sacha Galperine.
That's a mouthful.
Yes. but I got it out. Production companies: Columbia Pictures, Marvel Entertainment, Aradet Productions, and Matt Tomac Productions. Distributed by Sony Pictures Releases. Release date of December 13, 2024 in the United States. Running time of 2 hours and 7 minutes. And had a budget of between 100 and 130 million. Sources vary. And the U.S. box office was a less than good $62 million. I'll let you read what it's about.
All right. I just have to say that for those who don't think about this sort of thing, like the box office, that's not the be-all, end-all, because that's not counting in digital sales. It's not counting on DVDs and overseas sales, and there's just so much more money. So I'm betting that this movie easily made its money back with all that counted in. So it wasn't the flop that everybody thinks it was.
Okay, let's go ahead.
So what it's about: following the death of his mother, Sergei Kravenov, and his half-brother Dmitry are taken by their father Nikolai to prepare to take over his criminal operations. During a hunting trip in Ghana, Sergei is injured protecting his brother from a lion. The lion then brings him to a girl named Calypso, who heals him with a serum and calls for rescue, leaving a tarot card behind. Sergei recovers miraculously from his injuries and soon discovers his physical attributes have become animalistic. When Nikolai reveals he killed the lion to teach his sons a lesson, a disgusted Sergei flees to a sanctuary owned by his mother in Russia. 16 years later, Sergei, now going by KRAVEN, is a vigilante who hunts criminals. After killing an arms trafficker in a Russian gulag or prison, KRAVEN travels to London for Dmitry's birthday. Their reunion is short-lived when mercenaries abduct Dmitry, and Nikolai refuses to pay the ransom. KRAVEN tracks down Calypso, now working as a lawyer, and convinces her to help. Meanwhile, Dmitry meets the man behind his kidnapping, Alexei Sitovich. Right? Setsovich, yeah. Who took part in an experiment granting him strength and the visage of a rhinoceros. Alexei proposes an alliance to overthrow Nikolai. Discovering KRAVEN's connection to Dmitry, Alexei lures him to a monastery in Turkey, but KRAVEN survives the ambush. Alexei then hires the Foreigner, an assassin who uses a form of ocular hypnosis to disorient his targets to kill KRAVEN. Tracking KRAVEN and Calypso to his sanctuary, Alexei and the Foreigner ambush KRAVEN, drugging him with a neurotoxin. The Foreigner attacks KRAVEN, but Calypso kills him with a crossbow and revives KRAVEN with more potion that he didn't know existed. KRAVEN then uses the buffalo stampede to trap Alexei, who, despite turning into the rhino and briefly overpowering KRAVEN, is killed. Discerning that Nikolai was the one who revealed his existence to Alexei, KRAVEN tracks his father for answers. Nikolai reveals that he knew Alexei was targeting him and his operations to take over and manipulate his sons to remove him. When a nearby bear that Nikolai has been tracking moves in to strike, KRAVEN walks away, having removed the ammunition from Nikolai's rifle, and the bear kills Nikolai, and in KRAVEN's mind, justice is served. 1 year later, KRAVEN visits Dmitry and is shocked that he has willingly inherited their father's criminal empire. Having gained shape-shifting abilities from the doctor who experimented on Rhino, Dmitry reveals this power to KRAVEN, disowning him, stating that despite KRAVEN's claim of being morally superior, he and Nikolai were the same. hunters searching for their next great trophy. At home, Craven discovers a note from Nikolai, along with a vest made from the skin of the killed lion from long ago, which he puts on as as he sits and stares at his reflection, contemplating what comes next.
Now, I didn't go into this with any real expectations. I've never been a huge fan of the Sony Spider-Verse, Marvel-verse. And since I knew this was more or less a villain origin tale with no real Marvel heroes in it, I figured I better keep my expectations low. I was pleasantly surprised by how well this movie was written. Most of the characters were extremely close to their comic counterparts. I thought a lot of fans forgot that Dimitri was always Craven's half-brother and the chameleon. They did kind of miss that Sergei Craven in the comics part where Craven was abusive to Dimitri, but I understand why they chose to put that more on the father Nikolai, and it was well executed in that context with Nikolai. I suppose some people could complain about the lack of a Russian accent on the part of Aaron Taylor Johnson. He doesn't really capture that kind of thing, but then Russell Crowe kind of overplays it, in my opinion.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, he sounds a bit too much like a Brit American, though.
That's funny.
Than a Russian. And so that would be a fair criticism, but I was probably too tired to care one way or the other, so long as I could understand what he was saying.
Right, yeah.
And I could understand his enunciations and everything well enough that it wasn't an issue for me. I thought he gave a really strong performance overall. Russell Crowe was respectable, I guess. They make a big deal of him being the consummate professional. He didn't phone it in. I mean, he was serious. He did a good job, but it was just like this character. In a way, he's kind of eating, chewing the curtains. Yeah,
yeah, he was very much.
And he wasn't all that much of a depth as an antagonist to me. I thought the other characters that were his pawns, shall we say, were better characters. Ariana DeBose was really solid as Calypso in what she was given to do. It will be very interesting to see if they do another Craven film or appearance in a Spider-Man film, whether or not she'll be brought back. For people who don't remember from the comics, Calypso is Craven's lover at one point. And I can see all kinds of possible different directions to make this work for Craven's Last Hunt. I'm not going to get into that right now, but we'll go on. Fred Hickinger as Dimitri was respectable. I wasn't really fond of him as Dimitri, but once I knew the reveal was coming at some point for him being the chameleon, but we'll talk about that when Chris is done. The Foreigner was really a well-executed surprise character to me. Probably the best executed character of all of them as far as the villains, or I should say the opponents to Craven. And that offered up whether or not Silver Sable will be coming after Craven in the future, since the Foreigner is her ex-husband. Again, he was not a character I expected to see, and they did him very, very well. I do suppose that some people didn't like Alessandro Nivola's Rhino, but really, I thought this was a very well-designed character, well thought of. Sure, it was different from the origins of the comics, but I think it was an improvement rather than doing it wrong in terms of the story.
Better than a mechanical rhino suit.
As I was saying, in the comics, he's just bonded to a polymer suit, and he can't ever take it off or whatever. And this actually made kind of sense. And it really played into some other things when they mentioned Dr. Miles Warren, who's the Jackal, which plays into the clone for Peter Parker. It plays into Peter having the 6 arms, all kinds of potential stuff. So I thought that was really smart. It made sense, and it actually made the character more versatile and unique than the comics version. And they didn't really waste the character because essentially the Rhino is a little more than a Russian thug who tried to get science powers to raise to the ranks in the mob, and that's what he did in the comics. That's what he did in the film. It works. I did like some of the foreshadowing in the film. Sergei's nightmare about spiders is perfect if and when he faces Spider-Man. Again, I see all kinds of possibilities for Craven's Last Hunt or Craven versus Spider-Man movie. I think the writers really did a brilliant job of setting things up for it. What do you think?
Yeah, this movie was so much better than I expected. I just don't get all the hate for it, except for fanboys just being douchebags who hate everything Sony or anything that doesn't conform to the exact movie that they had in their head, which that happens a lot. Aaron Taylor Johnson was perfect for this role, and the supporting cast was perfect as well. Even the Rhino, who I had serious doubts about from the trailer, was not horribly done, as I feared would be the case. The directing and pacing was really well done. Very sad to see a really good film get crapped on like this one did. Absolutely.
Yes, and both of us gave this a 4 out of 5. But there are a few comments or things that we want to add into this. The reveal of the chameleon with Dimitri at the end of the film. I did not care for that particular scene. I thought the way it turned around, it looked a little bit too CGI to me.
With Craven's head.
Yeah, with Craven, he turns around and he's shifted in look with Craven's face in front of Craven, and it just looked like it was so weird to have that head on that small.
It was,
frame
yeah.
body.
The first thing I thought of was, oh, welcome to the Lollipop Kids, the Lollipop Kids, the Lollipop Kids. That's the first thing that I thought of.
And I didn't really think that he was that much shorter or smaller of a character.
No.
I mean, he is technically, and even in the comics, I mean, Craven's like 6'3", 6'4", and Chameleon is like 5'9", 5'10". So there is a size discrepancy. I get it, but it was almost like an adult looking to a child version of him almost.
Right.
It just didn't. That one scene just caught me off a little bit. I like where this is going. Like I said, there's so much potential for this. If they do the whole Kraven versus Spider-Man, Kraven Last Hunter, Kraven's Last Hunt, what if they write it where Chameleon poses as Spider-Man and kills Calypso, so that Kraven thinks Spider-Man killed his lover, and that's why he's going after Spider-Man.
That's good. And he doesn't like spiders to begin with. He's afraid of spiders. So
right. So there's that. And I'm just trying to think, how do you get the reveal? Because, of course, at that time, Spider-Man's in the black suit. And why would Sergei then take on the black suit? And I was thinking the reason he took on the black suit was because he realized he made a mistake, and that he killed him he kills him unjustly.
Right.
And he realizes that he was tricked by the Chameleon, so he puts on the black suit to go after Chameleon. Mm-hmm.
That makes
sense. And then eventually Peter would come out of the grave and everything. But does it? I don't know. That's just something that came to my mind. I don't know.
I like that. That's a cool little twist there. I like that.
Yeah. And I was also thinking, of course, do you bring in Silver Sable to come after him as well, or what exactly would you do with some of these? Because I mean, this is a character that you've got some meat on the bone to play with, and I'm really going to be disappointed if they don't do something with this character in the future, because they really did a nice job with it.
They did, and it's sad because they've established the multiverse. They've established that the other two Spider-Man can exist.
Mm-hmm.
So they could split up, the franchise between the MCU and the Sonyverse.
Mm-hmm.
They could do that, and they could have a whole Spider-Man, Sonyverse
mm-hmm.
in addition to the MCU, and I think it would be fantastic. But I've heard through the grapevine that Sony was done. Like after this movie, they were like, "Nope, no more. We're done." So, did you hear anything like that?
No, I hadn't, but I haven't. I wasn't listening for it either. So maybe.
Okay.
But no. So I can't. Truth be told, a lot of the negativity for a lot of the films, I try to avoid as much of it as I can. Just watch something for my own entertainment.
Same here.
So I try to avoid a lot of that information unless I'm specifically looking for something in pertaining what we're reviewing. So, of course, I didn't have time to look for that, unfortunately, this week. But, if they don't, oh, well, I guess it's just, a a sad loss. You
It
know?
is. It is because it's a really good movie, and there's so many different channels they could go with this.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, like you say, there's no reason why they can't do Holland in the MCU and then do other versions of Spider-Man in the Sonyverse or whatever. Um, I don't know. It's just, was Craven after the Venom one? Did that come out after Venom, the last Venom film?
I No, it was before. I think it
Yeah,
was
I
a
don't
before
know.
because you know what? I just watched Venom's Last Dance last night.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Didn't that come out later? I don't know. Let me check real quick. No, that's a 2024 film as well. Let's see when that came out. Um, that actually came out in October, so it was actually before because Craven came out in December, so it actually was before. So okay. Oh man, but basically the last two. I think part of the problem though with fans not liking the Sony versus is because this really hasn't been about Spider-Man. It's been about the villains and making the villains protagonists. And I think a lot of fans are not happy with that idea of making the villain a protagonist, and I can understand where they're coming from on that scale. You know, it makes a lot of the characters more sympathetic than they maybe should be.
Right, and like with certain kind of characters like Venom, it works.
Mm-hmm.
But
It worked here, I
with
think, too, but it doesn't mean it always works, like you say. I
yeah.
mean, Morbius didn't do very well. It wasn't a bad movie for what it was, but it wasn't great.
See, now I really enjoyed Morbius. I thought
Yeah,
that
well,
was a good movie.
no. I think it was fine. I mean, I just wouldn't give it a 4 like I gave this one. I would probably give that one. I think we gave it a 2.5 or a 3 when we reviewed it before. But I didn't hate it. You know, now I didn't even hate Madam Web, to be honest. I know a lot of people did. But I didn't. I mean, I understood why people hated it. I could totally understand. I totally agreed with their point of view. But at the end of 10, there's another perspective.
Right,
But yeah, I think that part of that reason I'm that way is because I separated my fandom from Spider-Man a long, long time ago.
right.
You know, for me, it's more like, oh, is that the way they did it in the comics? Let me go check that again. Oh, it is cool.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing that Craven excelled at. I mean, Aaron Taylor Johnson did a fantastic job as Craven, but like you had mentioned, the villains really shine in this movie. They're just incredibly well done. The Foreigner, I had never heard of him before, but as soon as I saw him and he's like 1, 2, and like people are
Yeah,
stopping.
three, two, one. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
3, 2, 1. Yeah, and I'm like, okay, so I got to go look that up, and so
Mm-hmm.
and he was like dead on accurate from the
Mm-hmm.
comics.
The only
So
thing that he wasn't wearing was the purple costume.
right, which
We're glad he didn't, right?
right, exactly, yeah, no
So I
purple,
mean, yeah, we don't need that purple, but um, yeah, that was really a really well done character. And like I said, he was married to Silver Sable, and I was like, oh wow, that opens us up to Craven versus the Wild Pack, or there's all kinds of potential there. And I was just like, I wonder what they would do with that. Who would you cast as Silver Sable? You know,
right, exactly.
because they've already cast me femme fatales in these films. And it's like, who you got left? But it would be
I don't
interesting.
know who would you cast as Silver Sable?
Oh wow, that's a good question. Um, hmm. Well, let me first off find out how old Foreigner was in the movie. Um, age makes a difference, folks. Christopher Abbott is 39, so he was like probably 38 when he made that. So, and they were divorced. So, let's say you still have to have someone in the late 30s anyway. So let's see. Hmm. How about Alicia Vikander, who played
Oh, there you
um,
go.
Laura Croft, and she was in
Yep. I know who you're talking about. Yep.
I'm
That's not a
trying to
bad
think of
idea. Yeah,
Ex
that's a
Machina
good.
and a few other things. Man from Uncle. So yeah, she's in a lot of things that she can play the physicality of the role, and um, I could potentially see her doing that role pretty well. And that would be one possibility.
What is her
Um,
heritage? What's her nationality?
she's
Forget.
Swedish,
Swedish. Okay.
so that's a possibility. Let's see. Um, hmm.
Trying to think of Swedish actresses.
Oh, you mean the character? I thought you meant the actress. The actress is Swedish. The character, Silver Sable. Um, yeah,
Looks like she's Russian.
they're all Russian.
Oh,
Let's face it, right? Um, let's see.
yeah. Eastern European country in the Balkans. So,
Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
well,
Um,
I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to say, now don't laugh. Well, you could
she's from
laugh, but
Simkaria, which is adjacent to Latveria.
I'm going to say Natasha Leon.
Mm,
If she were to, get in shape and do the whole, hey, I'm going to be a superhero thing. And
mm,
she's played Russians before, that kind of
mhm.
Eastern European accent.
I know she has. I'm thinking. She. I don't know. That's interesting. I'm not sure she can. Hmm.
She
That
just got that. She to me, she just has the right attitude.
that wildness you're thinking.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Silver's kind of a rich debutante type person too,
right, right.
and I just don't know if I see Leon pulling that off the
She
same.
plays white trash exceedingly well.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. She plays white trash, but can she get in the dress and the suits and and really pull that off? That I don't remember her doing that well, but but that's not impossible.
I like Natasha.
Yeah.
I think she would be a good. I think she'd be
I think in the
like
way I kind of worry that she'd be too comedic in the role.
I don't know. I think she can be serious when she wants to.
Yeah, it's interesting, but that's But what do you guys think out there? We got two people watching. Who would you cast as Silver Sable?
And another thing I like is and I think you didn't care for it was the reveal of the chameleon's actual chameleon face. I thought that was
Mm,
pretty cool and pretty well done.
I was fine with that.
Oh, okay. I thought you didn't care for that.
No, um, what I didn't care for what when he said he went to Miles Warren, which of course is the Jackal. I realized that they had done it where they had enhanced it to he had a metaphysical
Right.
ability to
Instead
do
of
that.
just being a master of disguise, right?
Right. And I went back and I re-looked up the character, um, and they changed him in the books that way too. So I was like, okay, well, if they did it in the book, what am I supposed to say?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Um, you know, it's kind of like you just have to deal with it, because his abilities have changed.
And I'm trying to think if in Morbius was there any mention or like odes to Miles or
I don't
Jack.
remember because I wasn't that fond of that movie as you were.
I'm gonna have to rewatch that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, there's just an interesting type of thing with that,
Mm-hmm.
with that character. He's done so many things impersonating other people that, you just kind of wonder what they could do with that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he could hold a movie on his own.
Yeah. Again, we give this film a rating of 4 out of 5.
And now I kind of want to see the backstory of like a standalone movie of the Foreigner.
Yeah, well, he's already been killed though, so I don't know.
But previous like pre-story, yeah.
Right, and the question is, if they did it, I mean, the way they killed the Foreigner was pretty badass.
Yes, I really like that.
And I know I think some people didn't like it because they didn't expect the person to do it, even though they hinted that she knew what she was doing.
Right.
It's like, you really didn't see that, and all of a sudden, wham! And the funny part was, when Rhino says, "What would happen if we took your eye?" Earlier in the movie, that was foreshadowing. Again, just really good writing.
Yeah.
That people don't necessarily take into appreciation. So, okay. I think that's all for tonight as far as Kraven. Next week, we hem and hawed all last night trying to find something. We thought we had decided. Then I decided no, because I didn't want to watch one with subtitles. My brain just was like, no, not subtitles, no. So we had to change, and we decided on The Creator, the science fiction movie from 2023. And yes, Chris will watch anything once.
That's pretty much true.
Once.
I sat through Trump versus the Illuminati, so yeah.
Unfortunately, Illuminati didn't win.
No, they did not.
So that's what we're going to watch next week in review is the science fiction film The Creator. And so if you have any questions or comments, either leave them in the comment section below or contact Raven at lewis.brightraven on Facebook or at lewisbrightraven2 on the Muskrat channel known as X. You see my artwork at deviantart.com and Chris's artwork at deviantart.com /fatboy73.
Yep.
You've been watching Quoth the Raven Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven on YouTube exclusively. And if you have suggestions for or books or movies you want us to review, email me at quothravenlbr72@gmail.com. I'll get back to you by lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. And if you want to chat Chris, he's Christopher M. Hall 1973@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Quoth the Raven, nevermore.